Flat earthers, and conspiracy theorists in general, have certain tendencies about them that really frustrate me. I don't know if they're a psychological condition, or if it's just a lack of understanding, but either way, here's a short list of 7 stupid things flat earthers do, in no particular order. Number 1. Assuming NASA has to do things simply because you want them to. This came up a lot in a painful debate I had with a guy I refer to as Maximus Fake Namius.
Is that you could stick a selfie stick on it with a camera and take a picture and send the signal back to every one of them. It weighs like a pound.
Why?
It doesn't
For
even
your
weigh a
amusement?
pound. Well, no, to prove it.
Why?
Your argument was, well, it's hard to do. Give me a better argument that it's hard to do. I'll wait.
There is no better argument than it's hard to do.
Why should we do it? For your entertainment? That's your second argument.
They ask questions like, why can't NASA show us X? Or why isn't there a live video feed of Y? A popular one tends to be, why can't NASA do a live 24/7 video stream of the entire Earth in full view? First of all, we did used to have this. It was called Dish Earth and was provided by a satellite company, not NASA. It went offline, however, in 2009. Second of all, the answer to the question of why is also why. What obligation does NASA have to fulfill your specific requests? The day I'm writing this script, November the 26th, NASA landed a new spacecraft on the surface of Mars called InSight.
Touchdown confirmed.
The InSight mission is to provide data about the interior of the red planet, using seismometers, heat probes, and more. Naturally, after the craft landed, a slew of cult puppet comments hit NASA's Facebook page. Why isn't there a live video feed? Why only photos? From the less observant, why no photos? Well, let's think about some logistics here. InSight's mission is to gather data about the interior of Mars. What purpose would a video camera serve in this situation? One may as well ask why there's no popcorn machine on the ISS. Let's also consider that a video camera means extra weight, and so does the hard drive that would be required to store the footage, since it can't be sent back anytime they want. All of this stuff costs money, and as I said to Maximus,
What I said is, essentially, why should any company, NASA or otherwise, spend extra money to satisfy you?
Number 2. Cutting clips short and taking them out of context. I have a feeling this is mostly related to confirmation bias. This is what happens when a person seeks out evidence to support their claim, and as a result, can only see that supporting evidence. What you end up with is short, manipulated, contextless video that doesn't give you the full story. Here's a couple of examples.
So many times during spacewalks outside the International Space Station, we can see air bubbles rising up. Can you touch on how there are air bubbles in space?
Can you be more specific? Air bubbles?
So yeah, like a lot of times during the footage, the NASA footage, you can see bubbles coming up out of the helmets or kind of from underneath you. How do you explain bubbles in space?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, and it just happens that actors train in an underwater tank.
In this clip, astronaut Scott Kelly's words are cut short, very obviously, making it seem like Kelly didn't know what the question was about. However, when we watch the full clip, we actually see him unintentionally explain what all of these alleged bubbles actually are.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. Now sometimes you get water in the helmet, and it's either from sweat or from the cooling garments. And in some of my spacewalks, I had like water in the helmet, not like I was going to drown in the helmet, but just little bits of water probably came from sweat. Often on the outside of the space station, you'll liberate little pieces of, it's a really harsh environment out there, and the outside of the space station gets beat up pretty good. And sometimes, you'll see just little flecks of paint or something that you might have disrupted floating away from the suit. And, that's generally what that is.
This is a pretty classic clip from a film called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon by Bart Sibrel, who harassed Buzz Aldrin until he was punched in the face.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief and a thief.
And was also arrested for stomping on someone's car during a parking dispute. Sibrel's claim is massive. Shots of the Earth at a distance from the Apollo modules were actually shots of Earth in low orbit, using dark material to cover part of the window and create a pinhole illusion. However, he simply leaves out footage that shows a zoom out. bringing the window into view and showing that in fact no illusion was being created. And that's only one of the many reasons why his claim is wrong. Number 3. Failing to examine the source of their own evidence. This is honestly shocking to me, considering the flat earther attitude that all globe believers are sheep who don't do their research. More than one flat earther came to me with the footage from Sibrel's film, yet when I bring up his name, they responded by asking, "Who?" That's right, they don't even know who made the clips they so religiously believe in, nor do they know about Sibrel's confrontation with Buzz Aldrin,
and a thief.
God, I love that clip, or his later tantrum and arrest. They have no idea their evidence comes from an idiot man-child and confirmed liar. Another common argument is a set of links from the CIA website, in which, cultists argue, the US government confirms that the Earth is flat. Let me restate that so that this can sink in. They know the US government is lying about the shape of the Earth because the US government told them so.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Not only does the argument fall flat on its face right there, but the context of these links is always ignored as well. For instance, this first one, published in 1948, shows Russia stating that the shape of the Earth is unknown. However, if you do some very basic research, you would know that the first photos of Earth from space were taken in, 1948, and they didn't capture the whole Earth. So their statement, at this time, in this context, makes perfect sense. Number 4. Stating outright lies. This makes me wonder about the legitimacy of the entire conspiracy. Honestly, if you're willing to lie to prove your point, is your point in any way valid anymore? Furthermore, you start to look like you're promoting this belief for ulterior motives, because you clearly know the truth, but you have intentionally set it aside. Let's go back to Sibrel again.
And a thief.
Let's even go back to those same clips. Sibrel claims that the first bit of faked footage was only shown for about 20 seconds on live television. However, in reality, 30 minutes was shown. I honestly can't see how Sibrel would have wrongly believed there was only 20 seconds. I believe he must have known and intentionally lied about it.
In 1969, NASA goes to the moon for the first time, where President Nixon talked to them on the phone with no problem.
Hello, Neil and Buzz. I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made from the White House. I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you have done. For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives.
Only there is a problem. Nixon would not have been able to talk to them because the moon is supposedly 238,000 miles away.
Here, in Odd Reality's video, he makes a statement that is very simply false and provides no evidence to support it. This I might be able to explain as stupidity, but it's still a lie. Yes, we can communicate with anyone on the moon. We can communicate with the ISS. We can communicate with the Mars rovers, though that takes time due to Mars being a minimum of 200 million kilometers away. We can even communicate with the Voyager probes, which are 11 billion miles away. Distance doesn't make us unable to communicate, it just adds a few challenges.
In summary, Antarctica is treated as a giant natural reserve. Like a military base, all activities and pathways in Antarctica must be approved. This is unlike any other area in the world, except maybe a place like North Korea.
Okay, one more. This is also an outright lie, and a good example came up recently in the news. Off the coast of India is an island known as North Sentinel Island, home to the primitive Sentinelese people. The Sentinelese are very territorial, and have attempted to kill any people who approach their beaches, even firing at helicopters with arrows. The Indian government has banned all travel to the island, not only for safety concerns, but also to keep people from infecting the Sentinelese with pathogens that the primitives don't have any resistance to. The government goes there occasionally, carefully restricted travel, but nobody else. This is only one example of how this video is lied. Number 5. Reversing the burden of proof. This one absolutely infuriates me. The conversation goes like this. NASA's faking everything. Prove it. Prove they're not. No, that's not how that works, buddy. You made the claim, you need to support it. It's not on me to prove anything because I don't have a dog in this fight. You do. If I walk up to you and said, you killed my brother, prove that you didn't, I know you'd be like, bitch, prove I did. I mean, I don't need to defend this any further, and that's exactly the point. The burden of proof lies on the accuser, and that's all there is to it. Number 6. Jumping to conclusions. This is practically the basis of the flat earth theory. It boils down to a million tiny things that don't make sense, at least to you, and each one of them must lead to conspiracy. It can't possibly be anything else. A good example of this exists with Jeranism, who during his debate with Red's rhetoric, proclaimed that Red's viewpoint was unfalsifiable.
What I'm trying to explain to you is that your entire view of space and everything that's going on is unfalsifiable because it doesn't matter what happens, you'll have an excuse.
Has it ever occurred to Jism that the reason Red always has an answer is because there always is an answer? Doesn't that make more sense than conspiracy? Here's a clip from a flat earther I tried to goad into debating me. He didn't take the bait, but he did leave this gem. In it, he claims an astronaut is handling an object that is invisible due to a malfunction with whatever special effects technology is being used. I offered a counter-argument. It looks like he's adjusting his watch. The flat earther's response was that I was blind and stupid because he's obviously handling an invisible object. Why? Why is your interpretation immediately correct? Why are no other explanations possible? Which of these conclusions requires less assumptions? A man on the space station adjusted his watch, or a man on a soundstage moved an invisible object because the station is fake because the government is lying about the shape of the Earth because Freemasons are trying to control the world? Talk about 6 degrees of separation. Number 7. Creating a false dichotomy. I changed my mind. This one infuriates me more. This is something every flat earther is guilty of. At least, every one of them I've met. In their world, there are only 2 kinds of people. Flat earthers and brainwashed gullible sheep. This is, to be honest, incredibly insulting, narrow-minded, and naive. To assume that 7.2 billion people can be boiled down into 2 categories is absurd, unless those categories are, say, male and female. People are so varied in their life experiences and levels of education that this is just plain wrong and stupid, to think that there's just you and the sheep. Perhaps it's some need to feel special, to assume that you are above the sheep. Nevertheless, there's more to it than that. I can describe, at the very least, a 3rd type of person, which would be myself. A skeptic, self-taught science enthusiast, and proud globetard. Why? Because I've done my research. There was a time when I doubted the moon landing, so what did I do? I looked into it. I picked apart every claim that the moon hoax made, and do you know what I found? There are no inconsistent shadows. The Van Allen belts were handled in a careful way that avoided most damage. Sibrel's film is a pack of lies and misconceptions. The landing sites were verified by both the Chinese and the Russians. Guess what? We went to the moon. How did I decide this? Because I'm brainwashed? Pretty obviously not. Get out of your echo chamber, flat earthers. There's more to this than any of you realize. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you like this video, like it. If you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel, which is Dead Kennedy in Space. Thank you, and I'm out.
Over the next hill, beyond the horizon.
Find your place in space. Space is vast and unexplored. There's a lot of work to do.